You've been conditioned to be gentle, expressive, and always available. Yet despite this, you're overlooked, ghosted, and left questioning what went wrong. Why? Because you're following a script meant to keep you powerless. Today I'm revealing the real rules, the ones women never openly admit but instinctively respond to. Learn these and you'll never chase again. They'll be drawn to you. Rule number 13. Every human interaction operates within a quiet hierarchy. Beneath smiles, kind words, and gestures lies the fundamental language of dominance. It's conveyed through posture, tone, presence, and above all, consequences. The man who understands this doesn't fight for attention. He commands it through sheer presence. For women, attraction rarely stems from surface-level traits alone. It's about how a man shapes the space around him. Seduction flows not from charm, but from control. When a man walks into a room and the atmosphere subtly shifts, people adjust conversations, dim glances, follow this as power's silent signal. This isn't about volume or showmanship. True authority is quiet. It's the calm before the strike. It does not declare itself. It simply exists. A truly powerful man doesn't seek recognition. His behavior already commands it. His decisions have weight. His movements are intentional. His silence is purposeful. This quiet dominance sparks intrigue. It fuels desire. And in women, it awakens an instinctive pull they might not even comprehend. Power creates certainty, and certainty in a man is deeply alluring. A woman seeks safety, not merely financial or physical, but emotional leadership. She's drawn to the man who lacks dependency because he becomes the one worth pursuing. His world does not orbit her. Instead, she must earn a place within it. This reverses the usual narrative. When a man radiates power, women don't assess whether they want him. They begin wondering how to be chosen by him. This presence isn't about wealth or status, though they can enhance it. It begins from within. A man on a mission with direction and control over his environment emits strength in everything he does. He doesn't speak aimlessly because he knows talk without weight is meaningless. He avoids over-explaining, understanding that to explain unnecessarily is to concede. He moves with certainty even when others can't yet see his path. This isn't arrogance, it's control. In this light, attraction becomes less about looks and more about mental dominance. A woman might admire a man's appearance, but she becomes fixated on the one whose gaze feels like it pierces through her soul, the man who doesn't laugh nervously, who doesn't seek permission, who listens more than he speaks, not out of shyness, but out of calculation. Observation and awareness is the one who cannot be manipulated. His approval is not freely given, it must be earned. And that makes it infinitely more valuable. Many men mistakenly believe that the path to attraction lies in compliments, flattery, and emotional transparency. While those behaviors may gain respect, they rarely ignite fascination. Women aren't drawn to men who trail after them. They're captivated by men they can't fully decode, men who could walk away at any time, not in bitterness, but in complete self-sufficiency. The man with choices never pleads. And paradoxically, the man who never begs becomes the most sought after. Real power is the mirror that reflects a woman's self-doubt. She begins to question how she stands in your eyes. Her drive to resolve that uncertainty fuels deeper attraction. In this shift of dynamic where she moves forward, while you remain still, the game reverses. Suddenly you're not chasing beauty. Beauty is drawn to you. This isn't manipulation, it's presence. You hold yourself with such inner strength that people naturally adjust themselves around you. No direct control is needed. True power doesn't plead. It influences without pressure. It captivates without effort. Understand this: a man may have status, appearance, or charm, but if he lacks self-command, he is eclipsed by the man whose inner control remains steady and silent. Women sense this intuitively. They might challenge it, but eventually they respond to it. Women aren't looking for perfection. They crave the edge between danger and security, unpredictability and steadiness. And the man who can walk away without hesitation because he stands on values deeper than approval embodies this edge. Where power resides, desire follows. This isn't coincidence. It's evolutionary. It's hardwired. And it's yours to master. When you build discipline within yourself first, the rest will align. So will she. Rule number 20. Desire cannot survive in abundance. It thrives in lack. The mind does not long for what is always at arm's reach. It yearns for what it cannot fully claim. Scarcity is the strongest psychological driver in attraction, and yet too many men destroy their value by always being present, too eager, too easy to access. In making themselves ever available, they erase the very mystique that makes them desirable. What is constantly offered becomes routine, expected, and uninspiring. But when something disappears without explanation, when it can't be summoned on demand, the mind starts to fixate. It seeks closure. It craves resolution. This isn't just romantic, it's psychological. What we can't fully claim, we tend to glorify. And what we idealize, we chase with irrational urgency. Scarcity fuels imagination. And in the realm of attraction, imagination outpowers reality. A woman doesn't fantasize about the man who constantly seeks her attention. She fantasizes about the one who appears briefly, leaves a mark, and slips away. The one who doesn't instantly reply. The one who remains unforgettable without always being visible. His absence becomes more profound than another man's presence. His silence resounds louder than praise. His unpredictability plants tension in her thoughts, prompting questions. What's he doing? Who is he with? Does he think about me? Scarcity forms a vacuum, and that vacuum invites fantasy. The man who is perpetually available leaves no room for mystery, and without mystery, imagination dies. But the man who withholds his presence doesn't fade, he becomes a legend. His identity isn't shaped by constant visibility, but by who he becomes in absence. This is where true obsession takes root in the mind of the woman who can't decode your moves, and as a result, can't stop thinking about them. Many men mistake accessibility for loyalty. They think constant presence equates to value. In truth, it reveals their neediness. And neediness is the end of desire. It signals a lack of options, a lack of restraint, and worst of all, a lack of significance. A man who is too available signals that his time has no price, that he has nowhere else to be, that his attention is too easily given. And when something comes cheap, it loses allure. Scarcity, in contrast, signals abundance elsewhere. It tells her that your life is full, that she must earn her spot in it. This flips the usual script. The man who is elusive becomes a challenge, and women instinctively value what they must work to attain. In truth, the more effort she puts in to reach you, the more significant you become in her mind. Emotional, mental, and even physical investment makes detachment more difficult. At this point, it's more than attraction, it's attachment. Scarcity doesn't mean vanishing altogether. It's a strategic rhythm, appearing just enough to spark interest, then stepping back to let that interest grow. You don't leave trails, you leave traces. You reply when it aligns with your rhythm, not when it's expected. Your time is not a free-for-all, it is a privilege. She doesn't get unlimited access to your presence. She must earn it. Obsession is created not by saturating her with attention, but by offering just enough absence to stir her curiosity and desire. Today's world sells the illusion that instant replies and nonstop interaction are attractive. But timeless truths existed long before smartphones. No matter how fast technology evolves, the core laws of human attraction remain unchanged. A man who avoids the trap of being perpetually reachable becomes scarce, and scarcity breeds magnetism. Intrigue becomes fascination. And when sustained carefully, fascination evolves into powerful desire. Scarcity also brings unpredictability. If she always knows your schedule, your availability, your every move, you lose the edge. You become emotionally static. But if your presence is scattered, your response is delayed, and your life unpredictable, she starts pursuing you. Not because you're manipulating her, but because you're absorbed in a life that isn't centered on her. You're not orbiting around her. You are your own sun, and she begins to orbit you, striving to stay within your gravity. Once a man learns to wield scarcity, he no longer has to explain or persuade. His absence holds more weight than another man's presence. His silence is more compelling than words. And every time he reappears, it feels like a privilege, not an obligation. The entire paradigm shifts. She's no longer the one being chased. She becomes the one who chases not due to mind games, but because you've become someone she cannot effortlessly claim. And what can't be owned becomes unforgettable. Rule number 3E. Every exchange between a man and a woman is an implicit power negotiation, not through shouting or overt control, but through the unseen framework of the frame, the unspoken narrative that shapes the moment. Whoever holds the frame dictates the direction. They define the pace, the tone, and most importantly, who holds authority. The frame is the battleground before the first word is spoken. Whoever establishes it wins by default. A passive man enters a conversation seeking approval. He mirrors, he adapts, he moderates his tone and tailors his words based on her reactions. What he doesn't realize is that he's already relinquished leadership. He has stepped into her frame, her definitions, her worldview. In that position, he can only follow. He reacts instead of leads. He becomes submissive rather than sovereign. Women don't yield to men who surrender to them psychologically. Women don't yield to a man because he demands it. They yield to the one whose reality is so compelling, she's drawn to become part of it. The frame isn't just in conversation. It's in energy and presence, and in the psychological pressure of unwavering certainty. A woman constantly tests to see if your reality can be shaken. She doesn't always disagree to argue often. It's a probe for emotional cracks. She challenges not to win, but to measure your composure. When you let her control the tone, the subject, or the emotional tempo, you've forfeited leadership. You step into her story, and a man without his own narrative is forgettable. The man who owns the frame remains calm. He doesn't justify himself. He stands firmly in his truth and doesn't beg for it to be accepted. He speaks in declarations, not hesitations. He leads the rhythm of the exchange, and she follows not out of submission, but because she senses a calm strength that commands alignment. A strong frame doesn't force. It invites surrender, not through pressure, but through unshakable presence. And voluntary surrender is the seat of desire. Frame mastery shapes not only what's tolerated, but also what's craved and what's respected. When a woman brings drama, manipulation, or emotional tests, and you respond with pleading anger or justification, you've already stepped into her world. But if you meet her volatility with calm eyes, few words, and composed detachment, the power shifts. She realizes the emotional gravity in the room is no longer hers. Your ability to remain unmoved becomes its own language. It tells her you are not a man who dances to the rhythm of emotional turbulence. You are the quiet force she cannot shake and cannot ignore. Leadership in romance, as in leadership anywhere, isn't handed out. It's taken by those bold enough to establish the rules. If you don't shape the interaction, she will. If you don't guide the emotional pace, hers will dominate you. Assertiveness doesn't repel women. Indecisiveness does. Doubt does. The man who looks to her for approval before he speaks, before he acts, before he walks away, has already fallen into submission. Not through weakness, but through absence of presence. A strong frame is born from genuine conviction. It isn't a role to be played. Women are incredibly perceptive to false confidence. They sense when it's a mask, and they push until it shatters. But when a man speaks with clarity, when his body is still and his eyes unwavering, she feels the gravitational pull into his world, into a frame that is not hers, but one she can't resist. And then her mindset begins to align with his. That's where true attraction transforms into submission, not through pressure, but through unspoken psychological command. Even in silence, the frame holds strong. The man who sits comfortably without rushing to fill quiet moments shows he isn't ruled by nervous energy. The one who listens without reacting to every statement reflects emotional discipline. And the man who disagrees with calm confidence shows he isn't afraid of disapproval. These subtle signals are deeper than any practiced line or strategy. They are micro-expressions of frame mastery. The man who maintains control of the frame governs more than just conversation. He shapes how others see him, how they feel around him, and how they respond. He becomes the standard. Other men are measured against him. She begins to wonder why his presence lingers in her thoughts. His reality becomes the one she wants to inhabit because it is more stable, more defined, and more grounded than her own. And in a world drowning in emotional volatility, a man rooted in clarity and calm becomes magnetic. Rule number 4C. In the silent tug-of-war of desire, the most powerful man is not the one declaring the most affection or delivering grand romantic gestures. It is the man who remains composed, whose emotions are steady, and who maintains his internal order even amid emotional chaos. While others get swept up in the storm of emotional intensity, he stays still watching, evaluating, waiting. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It's calculated control. And in the game of seduction, it is far more powerful than charm or passion. Too many men unravel at the first sign of interest. They mistake openness for strength and vulnerability for value. They talk too much, dive in too quickly, and extinguish the very mystery that could have drawn her in. In their quest to be emotionally open, they destroy the tension that keeps her intrigued. Desire isn't created through emotional exposure. It's born from distance, uncertainty, and the challenge of not knowing exactly how you feel or how much influence she has over you. A woman desires to feel. She craves the emotional ride, the highs and the unknowns. But when all of your emotions are revealed too soon, the mystery vanishes. The spark fades. The game is over. A man who lacks control over his emotional world becomes just another puppet she can predict and manipulate. The man who can look her in the eye and show restraint, not because he can't feel, but because he chooses not to reveal, becomes a fixation. She begins seeking the depths of his emotional world. She wants to uncover his secrets. And that pursuit pulls her in more deeply than any open-hearted man could. Emotional detachment means never being too reactive, never chasing validation, never being thrown off balance. If she pulls away, you don't chase. If she tests you, you don't flinch. If she cries, shouts, or shuts down, you remain steady and unaffected. Not because you're indifferent, but because you've cultivated the discipline to remain unmoved unless it's your decision. This steady calm is what sets the powerful apart from the average. It shows that your sense of self isn't shaped by her validation, nor disturbed by her emotional waves. You are grounded, and that core is untouchable. This creates an emotional imbalance. While she spins in doubt, dissecting your words and trying to gauge your feelings, you stay unreadable. And in attraction, the unknown always holds more power than the obvious. Certainty ends pursuit. But when she feels your emotions are out of reach, when she senses you could walk away without unraveling, she leans in. She gives more. She opens up. Her longing becomes attached to the mystery you represent. Emotional detachment also gives you the upper hand in conflict. Where most men react raising voices, becoming defensive, scrambling to be understood, a detached man listens without flinching. He speaks with purpose and precision. He doesn't need to win because he doesn't perceive the moment as a threat. His composure unsettles and intrigues her. She may lash out, accuse, or withdraw, trying to provoke a reaction. But when you offer none, her tactics begin to fold in on themselves. She starts to question her approach, question her impact, question why you're not behaving like the others. This mental tension enhances your perceived strength, elevates your value, and increases your emotional scarcity. And the less accessible you appear, the more drawn she becomes. The foundation of this control is independence. The emotionally detached man isn't heartless. He simply doesn't rely on others to define his emotional state. His validation is self-sourced. His emotional balance doesn't sway with affection or rejection. This forms a shield around him, a fortress that both protects and sets him apart. While others crumble under emotional withdrawal, he remains focused. While others chase attention, he retreats into his mission. While others demand to be heard, he chooses silence and observation. To be emotionally detached is not to deny feeling, it's to master feeling. It's the ability to experience deeply, yet express deliberately. It's having the emotional depth of a king and the control of a tactician. Women aren't magnetized by men who beg for closeness. They're captivated by the man who treasures his solitude so fully that only something extraordinary earns a place beside him. She's not looking to be your emotional support system. She wants to earn her way into the fortress you've built. In a world where most men crave attention, validation, and emotional connection, the man who holds back becomes a symbol of rarity and strength. He becomes distinct. He radiates control. And even if he speaks sparingly or reveals little, it's his emotional self-reliance that makes him magnetic. Rule number 50. In relationships, power isn't sustained through affection, it's sustained through perception. And the most powerful perception you can create in a woman's mind is this: she feels like the most cherished woman in your world, while silently understanding she isn't indispensable. This paradox, the appearance of exclusivity paired with the quiet truth of replaceability, is one of the sharpest tools in attraction. It keeps her engaged, striving, and slightly unsettled in a way that deepens her emotional investment. Most men fall into one of two traps. Some place women on pedestals, smothering them with attention, praise, and emotional devotion. While well-meaning, this approach quickly loses its edge. It removes all mystery. Once a woman realizes she occupies your entire universe, she starts entertaining the idea of what lies outside of it. Others swing too far the other way. They become cold, aloof, emotionally distant. These men might stir initial intrigue, but they fail to provide a sense of emotional security. Eventually, a woman will retreat to someone who makes her feel special, even if that feeling is only skillfully crafted. The man who strikes the perfect balance, making her feel unique while reminding her she's not irreplaceable, creates psychological dominance. She feels both lifted and unsure. One moment she believes she's the only one who truly sees into you. The next she senses that if she crosses the line or walks away, you wouldn't hesitate to move on. This isn't manipulation, it's positioning. It's the positioning that keeps her engaged, responsive, and emotionally invested. To create this effect, you must act with intention. Offer her warmth, interest, and charm. Let her experience the thrill of being selected, but always carry the quiet reminder that she was never your only option. Your compliments are measured and specific. They are sincere but never excessive. You might call her beautiful, but never in a way that implies she has you in awe. You can express desire but never desperation. You can give her your time but never offer yourself on demand. These aren't hollow gestures. They are intentional impressions that draw her in deeper while carefully preventing her from ever feeling fully secure. While security offers comfort, it often suffocates passion. When a woman is certain of her place, her imagination fades. But when her position feels earned through her actions, her words, and how she treats you, she becomes motivated to preserve it. She stops being passive. She begins striving to earn and maintain your favor. She becomes more feminine, more present, more alluring. And it all stems from one unspoken signal you continually send. You are valued but not vital. This balance must also be reflected in your lifestyle. You must show yourself to be a man in forward motion, a man with direction, with options, and with a life of his own. She must see that your world is fulfilled with people, passions, women who admire you, and goals that consume your time. She must experience your presence as a privilege, not a guarantee. The moment she senses your world revolves around her, the power dynamic shifts and not in your favor. Even in your intimate moments, the signal must stay consistent. You appreciate her, but you're not addicted to her. You connect, but you remain composed. You feel, but you don't become consumed. This is where real dominance lives, not in withholding emotions, but in mastering them. You can love her without being ruled by that love. You can cherish her attention without depending on it. You are the axis, and she revolves around your gravity, not the reverse. In public or social scenarios, your subtle cues matter even more. When she sees you speak confidently to other women without neediness, it reinforces your value. When you speak of past relationships with clarity and control, she understands others have desired you, but none have claimed you. When you move through life with discipline, high standards, and a calm detachment from needing approval, she subconsciously begins to understand your attention isn't free. It must be earned and continuously kept. Over time, this message embeds itself in her psyche. She begins striving to be perfect in your eyes, not because you ask for it, but because your presence constantly hints that someone else could always take her place. She's not paralyzed by the fear of being replaced, but she knows it's a possibility. And that quiet awareness shapes how she acts. She becomes more generous, more emotionally available, and more aligned with your expectations, because deep down she recognizes she's dealing with a man who would walk away not from anger, but from principle. This is the pinnacle of psychological influence, not through manipulation, but through intentional perception. You're not using threats and you're not dangling rewards. You're simply living as a man who holds himself in such high regard that no woman, no matter how captivating, can become his entire existence. And yet, by treating her with grace and admiration while never relying on her for your foundation, you spark her deepest urge to stay chosen by the man who could always choose otherwise, even if she knows she's not the only one. In a culture that teaches men to chase endlessly, to please, prove, and pursue, the true influencer does the opposite. He doesn't seek constant validation, he builds gravity. He understands that the real leverage in relationships lies not in emotional overexposure or consistent availability, but in crafted mystery, deliberate detachment, and the ability to influence without ever playing all his cards. What you've just uncovered are 5 core rules that distinguish the forgettable from the unforgettable. These aren't gimmicks. They are deep psychological truths rooted in how power, attraction, and uncertainty intertwine to create desire that lingers. The man who leads without needing control, who defines the frame without argument, who keeps his feelings guarded without being cold, and who elevates her while still reminding her she is replaceable, he doesn't beg. He sets the terms that make women naturally strive for his attention. This isn't manipulation, it's alignment. It's about becoming the type of man whose presence commands focus, loyalty, and admiration, not because he demands it, but because he embodies something rare in a world of compromise. Live by these principles not with pride, but with quiet confidence. What you gain isn't just attraction, it's enduring power even in stillness.